So have a look at this. Gearbox reassembled and in the engine. So here now we have this GSXR 1100 crankshaft, and here we've got the brand spanking new cam chain. So this is the part number. I think there's a part number there, is it? DID chain, and that's a perfect time to replace it because the crankshaft's out. Right, time now to install those thrust bearings, and the way they go in is with those grooves here. Because one side has numbers and no grooves, it's smooth, the other one has some grooves here. So the grooves go towards the outer side. Basically they're facing the crankshaft. So you effectively install them like this. Now the standard thickness for those bearings, which service manual specifies, is between 2.425 and 2.4250 of a millimeter. So let's measure that one. 2.44. So bearings lubricated and GSXR 1100W crankshaft with new DID timing chain landing in the crankcases. Alright, so checking the thrust clearance on this crankshaft, what you need to do is you need to push the crankshaft towards that way to create a little gap there between the crankshaft and the bearing. And I'm talking about this area here, see, here it is. It's got this tiny little play. You can push it that way or that way. So we want to push it that way, right? So that way we've got no clearance on that side, but we've got some clearance on that side. Okay, and now with a feeler gauge set up to 55 thou of a millimeter, which is the minimum clearance, we can now check if the feeler gauge goes in. And as you can see, it goes in pretty nicely. So we've got desired clearance. Alright, so lower crankcase is ready for bringing it on. As you can see, I've lubricated all the bearings and I've got the flange sealer applied. So now I'm just gonna chuck it on here. Okay, so mating surface is lubricated, as you can see, red sealant there. Starter gears go on, and then the cover with the bolts. Now securing all the bolts. 12 Newton meters is the torque.
A few moments later.
Welcome peeps, so here it is, going ahead with this project. Here we have the 900cc engine, you know, the small barrels, and here at the bottom we've got the bored out 78mm barrels from GSXR 1100. So let me just magnify it and show you what we've got here. There we go, 78mm. Brand new piston rings, and I'm going to be using a brand new Cometic head gasket and Cometic aluminium spacer plate that goes under the cylinders. So removing of the old cylinders, the 900 cylinders, as you can see I still have some tape on the conrods there, and removing the old base gasket. Now this 2mm alloy spacer going on, as you can see, flange sealer beneath it. Those spacers can be purchased from Orient Express or Cometic, or you can have them made for yourself, custom made spacers. Here I'm using the old base gasket as a protection for the spacer. Those are new clips for the pistons, part number there. And now lubricating all the vital components with ultra slick assembly lube from Permatex. Lubricating pistons and conrods and pins. Installation goes nice and easy. As you can see, piston rings already installed. I thought maybe this time I'm not going to be filming this because it's somewhat boring and I've done it twice in previous builds. Brand new rings on those GSXR 1100 pistons. Those are 78mm pistons. All the gaps on the rings have been done, so it's all ready. Alright, so pistons on, rings on, spacers on. Now I'm going to put the base gasket on. That's the part number. Okay, so I'll now be putting cylinders back on. So I've got the spacer, I've got the base gasket protector. I've got Jubilee clips on the rings. I've got the rings set up in the correct position. I've got pistons and rings oiled up. And I've also got the barrels very nicely cleaned and oiled up. And now hopefully I'll be able to just lower them on without too much hassle.
A few moments later.
So here we have it, installing those APE heavy duty head studs. Those were dedicated for Suzuki Hayabusa. Right peeps, so all the studs are installed and obviously you want to check that they're at the same height. So now I've got a brand new Cometic head gasket. That's an MLS type of gasket. So have a look at this. You can see all the layers there. It's very clean. Just make sure it's dry and clean and there's no debris on it. There we go. Let's install it. And so finally the brand spanking new MLS head gasket goes on.
A few moments later.
Right peeps, so modifying of RF900 cylinder head so it can be matched to GSXR 1100 cylinders. I've done this before and I've done a proper video on it. So basically, as you can see here, I made some marks using a Sharpie, and all those little black marks is where I'm gonna have to expand those ports with the Dremel tool. And I've done this with using of this GSXR 1100 old head gasket. So I put it on the head, and as you can see, those black marks will now, those black marks allowed me marking all the spots I need to work on. So let's go ahead.
A few moments later.
Alright, so as you can see, that port is now bigger and it's going to match the gasket, and I'm going to have to do the same with all of those ports.
few moments later.
So final effect, cylinder head done, all ports modified, and as you can see the surfaces are beautiful and clean. It's been actually reworked by the machine shop. They've taken off about 0.1 of a millimeter, in fact less than that. So now installation of the starter motor, some oil on the O-ring so it slides better through the hole. All nice and easy, no problem at all. Here we have the alternator going on. It's held by 3 bolts only, so installation is nice and easy. So here we have the bolts going on. And so with the alternator installed, I think it's time to call it a day. This video is already long enough. And I shall see you in the next episode. Thanks a lot. Cheers.